Hello, hello, hello. It's 11 o'clock Central on Wednesday, and I'm Dr. John Sherk, and that means this is Brown Bag Lunch, where I bring you whatever I can to add some value to your life as an air conditioning technician or someone who is caring for one. Okay, so what I want to talk about today is some data, some new data that I've just seen in the last 2 weeks here. This is data that it is for American workers, not only air conditioning technicians, but would apply to them, plus or minus a little bit of percentages maybe, but it definitely aligns with the data we see from American workers. So here's the data. This comes from Zogby Analytics by way of a company called Employ that does recruiting software. They have a great recruiting software product that I'd recommend to anybody. So from this data, overwhelmingly, 79% of American workers are satisfied with their current jobs, and only 10% report they are dissatisfied. Okay, hang on to that. Meanwhile, at the same time, 86% are at least somewhat open to other job opportunities, including 46% who are very open. Now, just let that sink in for a minute. What is the pool from which you want to hire and your current employee base? Usually, when I I did this in a room with about 10 people the other day, and the owner of the company was in it, and he went around the room and was like, "Okay, which of you are the ones, the 46% who are like very open, like what because in this world where if you have good people, you worry about losing them." So in this context, it's just so very important for us to, and I know it's hard to do because old paradigms live on, but to get out of the old way of thinking about recruiting and retention. Okay. We used to be, the employer side used to be in the power position. And for the most part, we aren't anymore. Okay. Not when it comes to real talent, really solid people. Really solid people can pretty much work for whoever they want to work for. And it's changing the way the workforce looks at work, the way the workforce looks at considering coming to work for you instead. What you have to do to woo a worker from another place to you, the days in which you just put out an ad on Indeed and you get a few good applications and you interview 3 of them, and all 3 of them could work out, but you pick the best of the 3, you make them an offer, they say yes, and then you get started. Those days are mostly over. I'm sure there's going to be somebody who's going to email me and say, "John, but there's an exception." Okay, but the exception in this case proves the rule. A workforce in which the vast majority of workers are both A, very satisfied, and B, at least somewhat or very open to a different opportunity, that's the thing that hasn't been true before. We very often assume, well, the reason someone would leave where they are and come to me is because they are dissatisfied where they are. And the data says not true. The data says they're open to coming to work for you instead of where they are. But what do you got? What do you got? So what does that do? That gives us basically 2 ways to compete for talent. One is with a wage war, and one is with culture and strategy. What are you going to give me? And by culture and strategy, I mean, allowing for alternate kinds of scheduling, and like what is it about your job, the way it's set up, if theoretically at the same wage, would make your job more appealing than mine that I currently have. And this is the most, if you are a service manager or you're hiring air conditioning technicians, this is the most important question to ask, full stop. Why is working for us better than working for them? And here's the thing. This becomes very much a marketing process. It becomes a strategy process. And when I work with a business owner on like business level strategy is only one thing. It is what gives us a competitive advantage. And if I just say, well, we work harder, I don't really have an advantage because someone else can say that too. A business strategy makes an investment in some kind of asset or something, like in construction world, if I invested in a certain pre-con software that allowed me to guarantee my prices in a way that other people can't. And if someone else wanted to do that, they would have to also invest in that software, right? That's building competitive advantage with business strategy. Okay. You've got to, if it doesn't cost you anything to have an advantage, it's not really an advantage because anybody else with one meeting could have the same advantage, right? Now, a culture can be an advantage. I have a client that's just a case study in this, but they have invested in it for 25 years, more than 25, right? The culture, and it's discussed this way, as a kind of asset that gives us an advantage when we compete for talent. Okay. So if there's other investments in your strategy, then that's fine too. So with that in mind, what are the 5 things a job must solve? Now you can go 5 for 5, or if you want to lean heavily into 1 out of the 5. But again, when you think about a strategy for going after a workforce, somehow you have to be creating something, an asset. I'm using the term asset, that because of your investment, someone else couldn't just also make the same claim and do the same thing, right? There's a difference between a bowl of ingredients and a cake, right? So you have to be able to kind of plan to where are we putting our investment to create this advantage as an employer in a marketplace where we have to prove ourselves to talent. There's 5 needs. I can pay the rent this month, right? In that case, you're competing for people who, for whatever reason, the way they're going at it now, they can't pay the rent. Maybe you're pulling in someone who was 1099. Maybe it's off season and they don't get 40 hours a week. But for some reason, they need this month, they need food, clothing, and shelter. And they need it now. Not like they're homeless, but the need is now. It's not something they fear in the future. Okay. The second one is a feeling of long-term security. How do we create 401k, insurance? How, does this person feel confident they can come and perform and they're not constantly afraid that they're going to get fired, like all that stuff. Okay. The second is this feeling of security. Third is the relationship connections in the building and in the field. Do they feel like they're on a team? Do they feel aligned with the other people? Do they like the other people? Do they feel other people like them? One of the parts of this is in the role that I'm in, do people respect the work that I do, or do people not appreciate the work that I do? Okay. Fourth is a feeling of status or esteem or a chance to advance, that my life is moving up and to the right somehow, or if they're younger, or that this place respects the experience and knowledge that I bring. And so I have a kind of, not guru, but wise person status within this company. I'm known in this company as someone who has been there and done that and has something to offer from that perspective. Okay. And then number 5 is simply, can I do what I do best every day? Are we setting up the work so that what I'm best at every day, because I'm telling you, when you're good at something, doing that work feels fantastic. And it feels crappy when you can't do what you do best every day. Right? Now, however you set up your culture, whatever you want to do to build competitive advantage, it's got to come back to one of these 5. And if you want to go 5 for 5, great. If you just say, look, I have a client right now, they're doing what they do best every day, and the relationships. They're building their competitive advantage in a labor marketplace around those 2 issues. If you're a family-owned business, that opportunity to advance thing is pretty tough, because people want to be service managers. Well, we don't need another service manager. Plus, the family members become the service manager because that's how we advance in the company. Well, then that person ultimately is going to make a choice to go somewhere else if that's what they really want, right? And there's things you can do there to create essentially promotions inside the same job. Maybe I should do one of these just on that. But there's some ways to help with that, where you go from supervisor to senior supervisor to, whatever else, and find ways to feel like there's movement that way. But these are the 5, and I don't think there's 6. These are the 5 that in your strategy, you have to address one of these, or several, or all 5 if you want to. I got to pay the rent this month. I got to feel secure. I got to feel great about the relationships. I got to feel like I'm going up and to the right with my status, or that if I have already, I have that here. Like I feel like some status here. And can I do what I do best every day? And if you build around a strategy, around one or several of those, you can compete in the marketplace. Okay. All right. So we're in the middle of it. It's hot. Guys are hustling. If you need some help with anything, please reach out and let me know. I'd love to just get on the phone and get to know you better. And beyond that, good luck. Stay in the fight, and we'll see you next week.